So this is video 2, 8.7 WSP, numbers 12 through 18. The other video was on questions 1 through 11, actually 4 through 11. 1 and through 3 were done on a previous video. Right here we're jumping to number 12. Now, on number 12, even before doing A times C, what should we do first? Pull out the GCF. So let's pull out a GCF and see how that helps us. What is a GCF?
9. 3.
3. So we have a 3r squared left over, a 5r left over, and a 2 left over. So what we could do now, Adrian, is focus in on the inside of the parentheses, and we have a quadratic trinomial where the numbers are at least smaller and nicer, right? So we still have to do the long process. But think about it, guys. What would be nicer, to work with A times C, 54, or to work with 3 times 2, 6?
3 times 2, 6.
3 times 2, right? Way better than 9 times 6. So on the inside, I'm going to ignore the outside right now and just focus in on the inside, and I'm going to go through the steps. Step 1 is to multiply A times C, which we just said was 6. Step 2 is think of the multiples of 6. 2 times 3, 1 times 6. Those are the only possible ways. Now, which pair of numbers combines together to give us the B value, which is 5?
2 times 3.
2 and 3. Okay, and we don't have to change any signs. 2 plus 3 is 5. So at this point, step 3 is to plug it into your answer format, using the shortcut, of course. We don't want to use factoring by grouping. You could use factoring by grouping, but the shortcut is to do the parentheses, and you look at this term right here, and you kind of like ignore the square and just put a 3r right here and put a 3r right there. So that's what I'm going to do. 3r right here, 3r right there. Okay? And now what do we do with this pair of numbers? We take the 2 and put it in right there as positive 2. We take the 3, put it in right there as positive 3. And we move on to the last step. So let me put the plus 2 right in there and the plus 3 right in there. And now the last step, step 4, is to reduce. Step 4 is to reduce your binomials by the GCF, if there is one. So if you look at that first binomial, there's nothing in common. So you move on to the second binomial. What could you reduce by? 3. So let's reduce both of those by 3. And the first one, like we said, there was nothing to reduce by, so it's just 3r plus 2. And then the second one becomes what? R plus 1. So this is our factored form, but let me rewrite it. 3r plus 2 times r plus 1. But remember, we didn't originally start out with 3r plus 5r plus 2. What do we start out with? With the original one, we factored out that 3. So this 3 on the outside has to come down and be placed in the front of our factored form answer. So this is our answer. It's not that bad. Let's try the next one. Could you pull out a GCF? Absolutely not. Let's move on. Step 1, A times C. What is A times C?
60.
Close.
Negative 60.
Negative 60. Okay, so we're going to take that negative 60 and move on to step 2. Think of the multiples of negative 60, like negative 1 times 60, like negative 2 times 30, like negative 3 times 20, like negative 4 times, what is that?
4 times
15?
15.
Negative 5 times 12, negative 6 times 10, and that's about it. Okay, so which pair of numbers combines together to give us the negative 4 as our B value that we see right here?
Negative 6 times 10.
Okay, now negative 6 and 10, when you combine those, it gives us a positive 4, but we want a negative 4, right? So we're going to change the signs. Positive 6 times negative 10. And then we jump to our answer format. Our answer format, again, it's kind of like ignoring the square. So we're going to put a 12y right here and a 12y right there, right? Ignoring the square. Okay, so let me just move that out of the way. Anyhow, what about this spot and that spot? What do I put in there? The pair of numbers, right? The positive 6 and the negative 10. Now, step 4, the final step, that was step 3, put in our answer format. Step 4, the final step is reducing by the GCF. So if you look at your first binomial, we could reduce 12 and 6 by what?
6.
By 6. So we have as an answer 2y plus 1. And how about over here? What could I reduce 12 and 10 by? By 2 only. So we have a 6y minus 5. Ladies and gentlemen, we are done. Number 14.
Wow. We're gonna ask you that.
Step 1, a times c. What is a times c? You need a calculator. Okay, so with the calculator, I did my 14 times my c value, negative 18. And now step 2 is to think of the multiples of negative 252. I know that negative 1 times 252 works out, but negative 2, just get a calculator and do 252 divided by 2, and that'll give you 126. So you know you need to multiply by 126. You could take 252 and divide by 3 and see what it gives you. It gives you 84. And then 252.
42.
So if I take 252 and divide it by 4 with the calculator, it'll give me 63. 5 doesn't work, but if you go 6 with the calculator, 252 divided by 6 is 42. So use a calculator and you could keep going. So I did the rest of these with the calculator, and we're looking for the pair of numbers that combines together to give us the b value, which happens to be negative 9. This is the pair of numbers that we want. What do we do with that pair of numbers? We plug it into step 3, the answer format. Now the answer format is simply looking at that first term, ignoring the square, and you're going to rewrite that 14k as the first part of each binomial. And then you take that pair of numbers, negative 12 and positive 21. Wait a minute. If I combine those, I do not get a negative 9, I get a positive 9. So I need to change those signs, right? So it's going to be a positive 12 times a negative 21, not negative 12 and positive 21. So you're really going to have that positive 12 right there and the negative 21 right there. And that is step 3. Step 4 is to reduce each of the binomials by whatever GCF the binomial has. So on the first binomial, 14 and 12, you could reduce by 2, and you'll get your final answer of 7k plus 6. And on the second one, we could reduce by what?
7.
By 7, and you'll get 2k minus 3, and we're done. Let's move on to the next one. 15. Ladies and gentlemen, should I start doing step 1, a times c? No, I should not start doing step 1, a times c. Greatest common factor, GCF. So what could we pull out of there?
4.
4. If I pull out a 4, what do I have left? 2z, and then plus 5, actually 2z squared plus 5z, and then minus 12. Now, on the inside of the parentheses, we're going to ignore the 4 that's on the outside. So we could focus in on the inside of the parentheses, ignoring the 4 for a while, and use the a value of 2 and the c value of negative 12 to do the multi-step process. Step 1, a times c, that's going to be a negative 24. Step 2, think of the multiples of negative 24. Negative 1 times 24, negative 2 times 12, negative 3 times 8, negative 4 times 6. Those are all the possibilities. Which pair of numbers combines together to give us the middle value b? Negative 3 times 8. So let's use our answer format. Now remember, the answer format would be simply covering up the square. Whoops. Simply cover up the square, and that 2z is going to be on each of the parentheses. 2z, 2z. And then you take the pair of numbers from step 2, the minus 3 and the plus 8, and you plug them in, and then you reduce each of the binomials. The second binomial is the only one that you could reduce by, which would be reduced by 2. Let me do it in red. Reduce by 2, reduce by 2. So the second binomial really becomes z plus 4. That first binomial stays the same, 2z minus 3. And that is your answer for number 15. Just kidding, that is not the answer. We are missing the 4 that's out here. You need to bring that down in the front. Actually, let me rewrite the whole thing. So my answer should be the 4 out in the front, parenthesis 2z minus 3, z plus 4. And that's it. Okay, so on number 16, you got to pull out the GCF. What is the GCF? What's the GCF?
6.
Is it 6?
No.
8.
Is it 4? Is it 8?
4.
4.
It's not 4.
8.
2 is the GCF. So on the inside, you're going to have 6q squared plus 17q minus 14. And now, the good thing about pulling out the GCF is now you could zoom in and focus in on that inside quadratic trinomial. And now you could apply the steps. So on the inside, step 1, 8 times c, that's 6 times negative 14. We're going to end up with 84. 8 times c is negative 84. And we think of the multiples of negative 84, that's step 2. So we're going to go negative 1 times 84, negative 2 times 42, negative 3 times. So on the calculator, if you do 84 divided by 3, you get 28. Negative 4, that is 4 times 21. Sorry. And it's making more space here. Negative 5 doesn't work. Negative 6, let's see if negative 6 works. You get 14. And also, that's about it. So which pairs of numbers combines together to give you the middle value 17? Negative 4 and 21. And that actually does give you the middle value 17. You don't even have to change any signs. So from here, we jump to our answer format. Our answer format is the 6q. Remember, cover up the square, and you're going to put 6q on the first part of each binomial. Okay? So we're going to go 6q right here, 6q right there, and then you take the pair of numbers from step 2 and just plug them in. The minus 4 goes right there. The plus 21 goes right there. And that's your answer, but you need to reduce the binomials by the GCF if it has one, if possible. So if we look at the first set of parentheses, the 6 and the 4, what could we reduce by? By 2. So I'll put it divided by 2 on each of those, and I will get a 3q minus 2. What could we reduce the second binomial by?
3.
By 3. And if you do reduce by 3 and reduce by 3, you'll get a 2q plus 7. Now don't forget about this outside 2 that we originally pulled out. That needs to go down in front of our answer, and we are done. Number 17, before beginning, we could pull out a GCF. Pull out a 3. 6h squared plus 5h minus 6. Now you could focus in on the inside quadratic trinomial. So a is 6, c is negative 6. So step 1, a times c, that's going to be a negative 36. Think of the multiples. Step 2, think of the multiples of negative 36. Negative 1 times 36, negative 2 times 18, negative 3 times 12, negative 4 times 9, and negative 6 times 6. And when we think of which pair of numbers combines together to give us the middle value, in this case of 5, that will be negative 4 and 9. Negative 4 plus 9 is positive 5. So now we know that we're going to be using those two pair of numbers to plug it into our answer format. And our answer format will have, again, the first term up there, 6h. Ignore the 2. You're going to plug in a 6h in both first and second parenthesis right there. So let's put a 6h right here and a 6h right there. And then from there, we take the pair of numbers from step 2 and plug them in. And we're almost done. All we need to do is reduce each binomial by the GCF. Let's not forget about that 3 out there in the front. I might as well bring it down right now. But let's reduce the first binomial. If you reduce that by 2, we're going to end up with a 3h minus 2. The second binomial you could reduce by 3, and you end up with 2h plus 3. Let's not forget about the 3 that's out in the front. That is your final factored form answer. One more. Number 18. What could we pull out of there? A2. That's about it. So we'll get a 6p squared minus 10p minus 10. Wait a minute, not minus 10p, it's minus 11. It's been a long video. And now we could focus in on the inside. Multiply a times c. A times c is negative 60. Don't forget about that negative sign. If you mess up there, the rest is messed up. Step 2 is think of the multiples of negative 60. Wait, I'm sorry, not negative 5 times 6. There you go. And negative 6 times 10, and that's it. Okay, so which pair of numbers combines together to give us negative 11? The negative 4 and positive 15, that combines together to give you a positive 11. So you know if we want the negative 11, you're going to have a positive 4 times a negative 15. So this is the pair of numbers that we want, not this one, right? Let's plug it all into our answer format. Let me zoom out a bit. So the answer format is to cover up the square, and you'll see a 6p right there. So we're going to put that 6p right here and right there. And we're going to plug in the plus 4 right there and the minus 15 right there. Let's not forget about the 2 that's out in the front. And now on each of those binomials, we need to factor the GCF out or reduce by the GCF. So if we look at 6p and 4, we could reduce by 2. And we will have 3p plus 2. And on the second one, we could reduce by 3. And we will have 2p minus 5. And let's not forget about the 2 out in the front. That is your final factored form answer. So we're done with the front page. I'm going to pick up on the next video the back page, which is the same thing. The only difference is that we have like an equal 0 right here. So the only difference is that you still have an equal 0 here, and you have to split them and solve.